Today we'll talk about sales engineering, compensation, and motivation. Are sales engineers truly motivated by sales commissions? Or is there something else that motivates sales engineers more than cold cash? Are they more energized by the opportunity, for example, to a new learning experience? Or is it all about accomplishment? Or maybe is there something else? Today we will examine some of these nuances. A warm welcome to all to this episode of Why I Love Sales Engineering. It is the week of the 15th of March, 2021. I'd like to start this discussion off by reviewing how most sales engineers are compensated in our industry today. Following this, we'll talk about what really motivates sales engineering. We will then look at some of the practicalities of sales compensation, understanding the necessary balances. While I have no hard studies to support this, my best guess is that most sales engineers are compensated on a standard plan or an on-target earnings. In this case, this is where there is both a base and a variable component. The ratios of these components range from all the way from 90-10 all the way down to 70-30 ratios. The smaller variable element is typically paid out proportionately to the achievement of a revenue budget plan. The plan that we're talking about here is the target normally set out at the beginning of the year based on some broad territory or product set. From this perspective, sales engineers are often very closely aligned with the same target definition as the sales managers or directors. Is this effective as a motivator for the sales engineering profession? With that segue, let's talk about sales engineering motivations. My experience is that sales engineering motivation sort of maps to variable compensation. What's your experience? My take is that sales engineers are more motivated around the notion of learning, mastering, and applying than a commission component that is linked back to a sales target over which they may only have indirect control. In a perfect world, sales engineering managers would create a tailored compensation program that includes both a commission component but also some sort of custom design, let's call it a carrot, that appeals towards the reptilian sales engineer emotions. Let me give you some examples. In 2011, the VP of sales in my organization told me that he would gift me with a new iPad 2 with 3G and 64 gigs of storage if I were to successfully onboard a recently won UK customer for which I was actually also the pre-sales engineer. This was the largest web chat implementation that we had ever won globally at the time. Now mind you, in 2011, the iPad was a technological marvel. He could have offered me a 1,500 euro bonus, but I always wondered if the actual iPad got my attention more than the money. Ironically, this is not something that I would have ever purchased with my own hard-earned commissions, but deep down, he appealed to a non-rational part of my psyche. And by the way, the customer was successfully implemented and I enjoyed this device for years. In this case, the iPad carrot was a very effective motivator that cost the company very little. Now in the present day, I have heard of other sales engineering managers who are appealing to the same emotions with targets which include productivity gifts, which are, let's say, related but not core to one's job. These are often side tools of the trade that a sales engineer would never purchase, but would love to have. At the same time, they're tools that are not cost justifiable, but they tend to be legitimate tools that could be seen as a business expense. Let me give you a few examples. These could be general productivity IT gadgets such as ultra-wide monitors, USB hubs, an SSD USB hard drive, battery banks, and so forth. Perhaps it could be an audio-visual tool of some kind, such as a 4K webcam, a broadcast microphone, perhaps some lighting, maybe a fold-up green screen, or even a subscription to the full Adobe suite of creative video and image software tools. This type of sales engineering candy can be a very cost-effective tool to stir up sales engineering motivation. Let me finish by looking at some of the practicalities of sales engineering variable compensation. While some of the things I've just mentioned may make sense, they're very difficult to implement and manage over time as part of an ongoing regular annual compensation plan. They usually have a relatively high administrative, let's say, opportunity cost for sales engineering managers. Having said this, they can be a very practical tool for the creation of additional spot motivation when needed. Here are my questions for today. Question number 1. As a sales engineering manager, what is the optimal compensation plan structure for the sales engineering function? And question 2, what incentives have you tried which turned out to be the most motivating? I look forward to hearing back from you on this topic. We'll see you next week.